Hello guys and welcome back to HJW Gaming. With PBE releasing today, I wanted to bring you kind of 5 initial first thoughts around PBE and discuss around them a little bit to give you guys who don't have PBE access a little bit of background around what primarily has and has not changed. So without further ado, we'll get straight into the video. First up, damage commanders appear to be mostly unchanged, apart from a few of their select troop support skills. For example, if we look at Dain and King of Men, for example, their actual damage dealing skills have not changed. The only skills they've changed are those which deal troop support, which is in line with what we expected of PBE, in that troop support skills were the kind of primary focus of the buff to try and bring them more in line with the very overpowered damage dealers. So it's likely that those commanders which are meta already are likely to remain to do great damage and stay very strong. Of course, depending on how they interact with some of the newly changed support skills, such as Black Serpent's bottom R0 is looking particularly strong, and scaling on Sauron's Respect 5 appears to be pretty essential to how the meta is going to shape out. But the good thing to note is they're not doing a massive radical change on that which is already good, only changing that which is underpowered to try and bring it up to the level of everything else. However, I would note that I'm unsure of what this means for respect refunds. If they were going to provide any at all, this could be a reasoning for not providing respect refunds on damage dealing commanders, because they could argue they haven't really changed, even if they do shift around their position in the kind of the meta space. They haven't changed their primary skills. But you'd hope that any which has skill changes would at least have respect refunds, you'd hope, in line with previous PBE, so that you could shape up your teams and bring them more in line with the changed meta when it comes out. Second up is support meta commander change. Now, the most notable thing here is actually looking at Sauron. So pre-battle phase skills now appear to activate at the start of turns, such as the Deceiver. And this likely means that the kind of luck-based, that 20% chanced base Deceiver meta based around agility gear is likely to change. The reason for this being, of course, is that you don't need initiative to be extremely fast and outspeed in that pre-battle phase if it doesn't activate at this time, and so you can't do that skill stealing that you used to do with Sauron, where you could steal, say, White Council or White Rider from Gandalf the White, or you could even steal skills such as Thrain's Guards or Frodo and Sam's buff skills as well. So yeah, it looks like in particular like this kind of interaction is going to change. However, looking at skills, it's likely that Gandalf the White and Sauron are going to stay meta from what I can see, as Gandalf the White still has very strong White Council skill as well as White Rider. The only difference with not having initiative is actually you'll put more focus in, so there'll be kind of additional effectiveness from White Council. And with Sauron in particular looks to be staying meta, as his Respect 5 now scales with focus. So this could be, as I said earlier, kind of meta defining, depending on how much this can reduce opponent's attack and reduce that damage, of course, from damage dealing commanders. The third note is, as expected, troop support commanders have seen the biggest buff. There's kind of too many skills to run through in depth. I will do these in an additional video. However, a kind of generalised change is that unit attack skills seem to have changed to plus damage percent skills. And this is present in an increasingly large number of skills. So this should therefore interact well with units and give them a lot of stacking damage buffs, and therefore bring up troop support damage significantly. Furthermore, a huge number of skills have now been given a scaling option. Usually this is scaling with command, though there is some that scales with focus and attack, for example, but primarily it's scaling with the command stat. And this means that skills can now go kind of above and beyond what's listed on the skill. If you can get an enormous amount of command, or whatever the scaling skill is, you can then get obviously above that skill ceiling that it says on the front of the skill. Of course, this will be kind of gear limited, so those with the best gear will be able to get the highest amount of scaling, and it will be skill dependent, as some skills will scale in different ways to others. And obviously these are still being tested about which commanders can benefit from this primarily. However, early notable beneficiaries appear to be Gothmog in particular, as he can give out a huge amount of troop damage support, particularly in early rounds of up to 30%. Kirun with his synergy with chariots and evil men, and actually Isildur as well, whose respect 3 now gives plus 20% unit damage. So they're all three are huge buffs, but of course there's so many commanders, we're likely to see a lot of change in this meta space over the coming days, particularly with how commanders interact with one another. Now, the kind of fourth notable thing I'm seeing here is that commander stats are now linked to respect level. I was somewhat disappointed when I saw this, as of course this does give a huge advantage for those who are the highest spending players and therefore will have the highest respect levels. Essentially, every time you level up your respect level, you do get a bonus to your commander's stats of attack, defense and focus, although this appears to have no effect on command. So this skill in particular will be gear based. There's also a unit buff of plus 5% damage, which is given kind of flat by the commander once you hit respect 5, and this can increase up to plus 15% as you boost your commander's respect above respect 5. So this is going to mean that commanders, you can't just kind of get them to respect 5 and be happy with the fact that you've unlocked all their skills. You're going to have to keep pushing them further if you want them in your main formation. The kind of knock-on impact of this is I think it's likely that obviously very strong Whale and Kraken players are going to get even stronger as they not only have the gear benefits now and skill points, they'll also have actual noticeable commander stat benefits as well. So I think this is going to further push the kind of Whale and Kraken players away and leave free to play a little bit in the dust if this does of course come to the live game. Secondly, it's going to further that position that you kind of have one main formation and then you kind of have other tiler ones, but you mainly focus on one formation. Reason being, you can't afford to distribute respect around 8 commanders if you're losing stats from your primary 4 by doing so. And last but not least, just one fun one. It seems to be that in this PBE, fellowships now hold 200 members, which is very interesting. I'm not sure if this is a change just for PBE to get more players gathered up together and talking more, or whether it's an intended change to push into the live game. We do see often that fellowships of 100 do team up with other fellowships of 100 in an attempt to fill up their faction with fully organised and active members. For example, my home fellowship teaming up with Dawn last season. So we've seen a lot of this. But if fellowships now go up to 200 members and fill up a faction fully, then that would allow obviously a lot more coordination, as you wouldn't need 2 split teams. You can have one enormous team that just fills up one faction themselves. However, of course, it will lead to kind of the increasing rate of super teams getting even better, as now you won't have to just pick your 100 best members, you can stuff 200 in there, and you'll see some of those enormous teams that kind of when they merge they can get everyone in together. I'm thinking say when Chaos and Myth merged into Aces, obviously a lot of very strong players were left out to join into other teams. If they had 200 members, they could just push both together and form probably the strongest team on the game. So we'll see whether that comes into the main game. Anyway, with that's kind of my PBE first 5 thoughts from my initial time playing today. Hopefully you've enjoyed what you've seen, and hopefully you have a little bit of thought around how this could impact your game and your meta in particular. I will caveat, of course, that all of this is only PBE. There's no saying how this will transfer into the main game. There was, of course, a big difference between what we saw in PBE 1 and what we saw come in Rise Toward 2.0. So this is all just preliminary testing thoughts, and it's only been out for a couple of hours, so we definitely haven't shaken out all of the essential things here. But just wanted to give you guys kind of a first off heads up to see what you guys thought about PBE. Anyway, if you want to see more PBE content in the future, definitely smash the like button and please hit subscribe to see more of my gaming content in the future. And with that, I've been HJW Gaming, and I really hope to see you on the next one.